Okay, so welcome to the Photography Kitchen. So we've got our usual assortment of courses. All right, so we're going to start. It's time for the hors d'oeuvres. And we're going to do our hors d'oeuvre is going to be a little taste of something fairly simple, but that's also very dramatic. This is a place called Turret Arch. This is in Arches National Park. This was last year. This year we didn't get any snow in Arches, but last year we did. And it was beautiful. Now, the colors were, should I have shot a color checker while I was here in this location? Absolutely. A storm had just passed, the sun came out, but yeah, everything was terrible. Now, the exposure is not my fault, it was my doing, because if you take a look at the histogram, you can see that the histogram's perfect. I really couldn't have gone any further. I needed to protect these clouds and the snow because it was so beautiful. So I'm going to Command or Windows people Control apostrophe to make a virtual copy so that I have one I can go back and forth with. And this edit's going to be actually fairly simple, but there's going to be a question about composition when we're done. So let's do the basic edit, which again is going to be fairly simple. Open up the shadows. I'm going to bring the highlights way down because when I do the presence adjustments, meaning texture, clarity, dehaze, texture dehaze or clarity dehaze, and then I'm going to add a bunch of saturation to this, a lot. Some reason it lost a lot of the saturation because I've stared at this rock formation many times. I remember the color of the grass. And that's something I always tell all of my people when we're out on a workshop is to stare at stuff. After you're done taking the shot, stare at the things and burn in your mind what the color was. Now, you don't have to remember it exactly, but you're going to understand if it was super saturated or, gee, that's really orange, more orange than I thought was going to be. So do that, and it's going to really help your editing when you get home. So this actually needs lots. In fact, it's also too dark, this here. So let's go ahead and deal with that. I'm going to use the color mixer because I think using the eyedropper is going to let us go into this color. Let's see. It needs to be more orange
Got him.
and it needs to be
Thank you.
brighter. Oh, somebody's not muted. Hey, guy, if you're not muted, by the way, please mute yourself. All right, so I got the saturation up. I need to bring the luminance way up on that color, and that brings up the foreground grass also, which in this case is very good. Now it's a little oversaturated as we've done that. And the other thing, using just the color, just using the color mixer, it didn't bring up the shadows quite as much as I want them to. So I'm going to go back into basic and get to the mask panel and choose a brush. Again, remember these letters. Remember KM Shift M. You're going to use these all the time. Just remember brush is K because what else would it be? So we go to brush, auto mask is on. I've got flow and density all at 100%. And in this time, I'm going to come into the whole things so I can bring up these shadows. Now it gets a little sloppy. It's okay actually if it gets a little sloppy because remember this is fading off. And if you want to, you can just hold down the Alt key and notice it turns it to a minus, and then I can just go underneath the stuff. So the as wonderful as Auto Mask is, it's far from perfect and it has a tendency to pick up stuff it shouldn't be picking up. So with that selected, let's bring up the shadows and open that up. In fact, I'm going to bring up the whole exposure a little bit because this thing was fairly glowing. All right, that's looking pretty good. The sky was much darker than this though, because it was a passing storm. It was actually pretty dark off in the distance here. So let's come up to the mask again, create new mask, and let's select the sky. Now, even if the sky wasn't as dark as I'm remembering it, it's going to have the benefit of creating dimension in the image. Because right now, if I just hit H to hide, or O to hide the sky over the mask, there's not enough separation between the background and the foreground. And that's where dealing with light and color comes in. So let's bring down the exposure of the sky. Yeah, that's how I kind of remember it. And let's also scroll down and add some dehaze to bring some clarity into the sky. And as I'm doing that, I'm going to bring up the highlights. Yes, that's kind of how I remember the sky. All right, so let's hit enter on that. Now, as I mentioned, Lightroom is far from perfect, as is Photoshop, at really creating perfect masks. It has a tendency when there's an interface between a light and a dark color to create those halos. Let's zoom into 100% and see if we're seeing any halos. Now, they're not bad, but they kind of are there. Let's zoom into 200%. Let's see what at 200% it looks like. This one's actually not too bad. If I have to go to 200% to try to see something, it's really fine. Here's some in here. You can see there's a little bit of halo in here. And we're going to fix that. But we can't do it in Lightroom. We're going to have to go into Photoshop. So let's go back. Let me put my 50% back because I want to have that. Let's go to fit rather. So here's the whole image. And I'm kind of liking it, especially when you consider, let me go full screen a second. There's where we are. That's what we started with. It's certainly not what made me stop and take the picture. But by taking that background darker, come on, where'd you go? Yeah, taking the background darker, now there is separation between the foreground and the background. And also by having that grass in the front light up a little bit, it draws your eye and it does give you a place to land and lead you into the image. So if I click on here, let that draw in. Come on. Yeah, you can see, looks pretty nice. Now, with all the stuff we just did, when we did that clarity and dehaze stuff, whenever you do that, especially to a large area that doesn't have any real contrast or edges going on, Lightroom does have a tendency to add quite a bit of noise to it. But it will also get rid of the stuff it creates like that. And we can get rid of that in details. So I'm going to, let's see what's going on at the top of this tower. If I just take this thing, this is the 100% button, and I can put it over anything I want to see. So there it is at 100%. I'm going to add a bunch of sharpening to this. But if I just do that, it's going to sharpen all these solid areas and add a whole bunch of noise to it. So we're hold down the Alt key, click on the masking slider. Because if I don't hold down the Alt key, we don't see anything happen. Alt, click on masking, and I'm going to drag it over until the sky basically disappears. I mean, there's some edges of some of the big clouds. That's okay if they get a little sharpening. But basically, I don't want the sky to be affected. So now we're only sharpening the stuff that's got edges in here. And now if we zoom into 100% up in the sky, you can see the noise is all gone. Really did a nice job of it. Now, that said, we do have a halo. It's not terrible. And if it would show up in a print, probably not. But let's make believe it would. So I'm going to send this into Photoshop, which is Command or Control E. So did I have Photoshop? I thought I had Photoshop running already. I did. There it is. Okay, so here's our image. Let's zoom in. First thing I'm going to do is hit Command J to make a copy of this layer. If you're not familiar with that shortcut, you can drag this down to the little box with the plus in it, and that will make a copy of it as well. So here's our copy. Let's zoom. We're going to zoom in. That's 200%. Yes, it's getting nasty and grainy, but it's not real. This is 300%. But we have this bit of a halo here. How do we get rid of that? We're going to use the stamp tool or the cloning brush, whatever you feel like calling it. That's this thing right here. I'm going to click on this. But what I'm going to do is you have all these blending modes here, which we'll go into blending modes when we do the deep dive. I'll make sure you understand what all these things do. But darken is one of the most useful ones because these halos typically, not always, but typically are going to go lighter than the stuff it's up against. And we can see that the stone is certainly darker than this gray. So the way the stamp tool works is you hold down the Alt key, and that's where it's going to select from. Now, since I chose darken, it's not going to affect things that are already darker than the thing you're painting with. It'll only darken the things that are lighter, meaning those white halos. So if I just start painting in here, and then I'll come down and re-sample, you can see those little white things disappearing. So I just come in around here. I got a little sloppy on that one. But let me just turn this on and off, and you can see the halo disappears? It's gone. Now, sometimes it's not a halo, but it's kind of the whole edge. Let's see if this one has that. Uh, Not really. Now, we'll find another image that will actually work because this one really doesn't have the problem I wanted to share. But there's another way to do it. But that's in most cases when you have that bright halo against something darker, using the stamp tool with the blending mode set to darken. If you don't want to work at 100%, you can drop it down to 80 or so. That does the greatest job of getting rid of those nasty halos, because every time you use clarity, anytime you do any kind of sharpening, dehaze, etc. in Lightroom, it's going to create those things. So let's go back to 100%. And whoops, I didn't want to do that. Now with 100%, you can kind of barely see these. You got to go looking for them. But if I turn it on and off, you can kind of see right in here in the middle that little bright white thing disappear. Other places you don't really see it. That was kind of the one place I really noticed it. What else in here? You know, there's too much top and bottom. It really is. I love this big cloud up here and I love this grass. But the problem is the distance from the top to, say, this part of the arch is as big as the entire arch. And the distance from the bottom of the image up to the bottom of the arch is as big as the entire arch. So it's competing with it. Let's try something. This was supposed to be an hors d'oeuvre. It's kind of almost turning into a main course, but that's okay. I'm going to bring up some rulers, which is Command R, and look to see what I think. Let me back off the zoom. I'm going to drag a line down. How much area do I want to end up having above the tip of that arch? I think I want to have a little clearance. I don't want to have it kind of getting close to the edge. I think that for the top, and for the bottom, I'm thinking around here. Because if I can get everything to fit into that area, then all of the arch parts are going to appear larger in the frame, and we want them to be the star. As I said, however, I love the top of this cloud. I love all this grass. Let's see if we can bring them back into the frame. So that's the aspect ratio I want. I'm going to hit the M key, which in Photoshop is the marquee or just the square. And I'm going to click from the top, and I'm going to come all the way down to the top, kind of the top of this arch right here. And the tool we're going to use is this. And this is a preview. This will be in the deep dive class. My favorite, tied for favorite tool in Photoshop, Content Aware Scale. And what you do is you have to hold down the Shift key so it's only one direction. And I'm going to drag it down, and notice when it gets, as soon as it gets close to my guide, it snaps into place. I could actually have done a crop and get exact cropping sizes if I needed. All right, so notice now I compressed it, but none of the arch moved. It's amazing how it does that. So let's do the same thing for the bottom. In the bottom, I'm going to pick almost on the entire bottom half of the image and do the same thing. Edit Content Aware Scale, hold down the Shift, and let's see if we can we compress that much? And the answer is no. The arch got squatter. It doesn't look right. Let's choose less of it. Let's deselect that and see if we just choose the grass, can we compress it? We may not be able to get all of it, but maybe we can get part of it. So let's again go to Content Aware Scale, hold down the Shift, and see that's too compressed. It's you could get away with it, but it's too much for me. I think about right there works though. So I can get a little bit of it back. So I'm going to go with that. And I will deselect that. Now I'm going to leave this extra stuff. I'm not going to do the final crop here in Photoshop. I'm just going to save this as is. So I hit Command S, and that will send this image what we've just done to it back into Lightroom. Shift tab to get back into Lightroom, and here it is. And you can see the stuff going on. So now I'm going to hit the R key and I'll do my crop here. So I'll bring that just down to the top. Let's see how much bottom I need. That's still a little too much. I'm going to end up cropping a little more. I think right there is good. So I'll hit enter on that. This images don't always need a vignette. But let's take a look. Let's go down to effects, and I'm going to add my typical -12 vignette. And then I'm going to turn it on and off or hide it. And we'll see. Yeah, in this case, I think it does. Maybe not that strong. Let's back off a little bit. Let's just go to like 6 or 7 and then turn that on. That's better. Yeah, so if we go look at that full screen now notice how much bigger all of the rock formations are in the frame. We darkened that background. Look at how it's created dimension with the arch separated out from the background. And by having the light in the grass here, which got brighter when we brightened the arch with the color mixer, that it gives a bright part to land on that you can then go into the image. So very cool place. If you've never been to Arches, absolutely, you got to go here. And getting snow is actually fairly rare. They don't get much snow here, but if you get the opportunity, do it. By the way, I'll let you guys know, I haven't advertised this yet. Based on questions that I asked of my readers, the Grand Teton Masterclass that I advertised a couple of weeks ago sold out in less than a week. That's just 5 people. That's it. I'm being strict about that. 5 people, but it's got a lot more face-to-face hands-on instruction. There are 2 classes during the week. There are individual critique sessions for everybody during the week. And it's a small group because with just 5 photographers, we really get to do a lot of in-field training. Since it was so popular, I'm going to do the same thing for Moab in November. And actually, Moab in November is fairly mild, but it's enough after the high season of the middle of October and before Halloween. So I will let you know about that. In fact, I should have it in Photo Friday this week if anybody's interested. Question.
Does the cliff on the right take away from the arch?
Okay, so the question is, does this piece on the right take away from the arch? I debated that when I first was doing this shot, and let's find out. What I would do, and I partly agree. I'm going to hit K, and I think it's a little too saturated because it is kind of off on the side. So let's bring the saturation down, and maybe bring the highlights down. Yeah, just to take it away. If we get rid of it completely, though, it's forming an important function. And that, when you have this, is getting almost slightly panoramic. You're going to read it. You're going to come in here. You're going to look off to the left. You're going to start panning across. And I think if this thing is not here, you're going to leave the image. This forms a physical barrier to keep you from leaving. So I'm going to virtual copy this, and let's get rid of it. Let's see what happens. And again, this is somewhat subjective. I'm going to bring up the crop a little more. And maybe I'll bring it in from the left as well. We'll just make it all about the arch. And hit enter on that. Is that a valid interpretation of the scene? Yeah, I would have to agree that it is. Let's see. Here's the however, though. By not having the other stuff on both the left and the right, we've kind of change the image into saying, here's an arch. Here's Turret Arch. Isn't it cool looking? Where having the rest of the stuff in the scene does a better job of telling the story of the place. You get a little more sense of what is around it, where you see where it lives, where this is, here's the arch, and you have no idea what's going on left and right. So as far as storytelling, I think this is a better image. As far as just a picture of the arch, if that's what you want to share, sure. It's a valid interpretation, but I do like that better. And yes, yeah, I see we got a little halo over here. I'd get rid of that before I printed it. But good question. And that's the beauty of virtual copies in Lightroom. You can just do those quick changes and find out for yourself. We got to get moving. Let's go to soup. I got two choices for soup. They're both, of course, water based. I'm going to give you a choice. Do you want to do the boats or do you want to do the crashing waves with the sky? Let's see. Let's see it. Okay, come on. Who's going to chat? Tell me. What's it going to be? Boat? Boat. Oh, lots. Okay. I'm going to, yeah, everybody's boat here. That's fine. All right, boats win. I'm going to tell you, you were partly wrong. I'm going to show you the end result of this after the edit, rather than do the edits. Okay. Okay, the boats. This is Hyannis Harbor. This is where we stay right up the street from here every time we do our Cape Cod workshop, which, by the way, will be in Friday's newsletter. It's going to be first week of June. So what are the problems? Well, let's get some of the basics taken care of first. Let's just bring the shadows way up. We've got a lot of white in the boats. Let's bring the highlights down. I don't think all the way. Yeah, actually, I do think all the way. And I'm not going to do anything else in here yet. I'll add some texture clarity and vibrance and saturation. Actually, it needs a lot of vibrance. I'm going to bring those blues out. So what's still the problem? The white balance. Now, this is as shot. Where do we want to get the white balance from? Let's see if we click on here. We could try it off the clouds. Let's see how that looks. And yeah, I'm not loving it. The clouds might be good, but this is way too yellow. So when you ask about how do I know about color casts, well, if you take the magnifier and you put it over a color, look at the numbers that appear underneath the histogram. So if I come in here, I can see red, green, both at 73, and blue's at 64.5. So there's less blue. Well, what is the opposite of blue? Opposite of blue is yellow. That means the image is too yellow. The whites are too yellow. There's one way that you can see a cast. If there's no cast at all, if it's completely neutral, you'll see relatively equal numbers under the histogram. So we could, because we know this, not that these boats are the cleanest things in the world, but this one looks pretty bright white. Let's see if we can sample right off of here. Now I got to pay attention to the numbers underneath. Notice it has red, green, blue, 92.8, 92.2, and 85.6. So there is blue lacking there. Let's try to white balance off of this part of the boat. And it is cleaner, but it's made other things darker. I think we can work around that. The histogram is still going. Look at the histogram. It's from all the way over black to all the way over white. So we're going to have to do the rest of this stuff manually. Let's bring the sky up first. Let's just get that done with. I'm going to click on the sky. And let's bring up the exposure a bit. Not too much. Let's maybe open the shadows a bit. Because the whites are pretty bright and we don't want to start clipping them. Is there too much sky? Yes, we'll deal with that later. Let's do the water. Is there an easy way to select the water? Honestly, no. The easiest way to do it is to just get the brush. Again, just hit K. Auto mask is on. And I'm just gonna drag all the way across. And actually, that wasn't that hard. Yes, we're getting the boats, the color of the butt. These parts of the boats are going to be reflecting in the water. So any color changes I make to the water would apply to the bottom of the boat anyway. So let's bring up the exposure here. And as we do that, we see we're losing color. So let's add blue to that. Oh, not that much. Let's do it there. I see a problem. I see this. Don't stay with me. We're going to fix that. And let's add some warmth to it. I'll put a little red. And let's open up the shadows. I think it's a little too contrasty. Okay, better. But now we have this weird blue going on over here. So we have to hit K again. And I'm just going to select this area here. And it's kind of, let's see, I'm not sure what it needs. We go yellow, yeah, definitely not more blue, slightly yellow. Does it need green or magenta? Neither. Actually, we need to take saturation out of it. So let's take saturation just to, there we go. That fixes it. Just get the saturation out of there. Okay, the background and then the boats. So let's, just out of curiosity, I haven't tried it this way. Let's see what the software thinks the subject is. Is it clever enough? That's pretty darn good. All right. However, notice there was a fail here. Let's go to 50%. Now let's go to 100%. Look what it did in between all of the rigging of this boat. Let's see what happens if we subtract the sky. Is it going to understand that's, yep, it did it. That did it. Okay, pretty good job. So let's brighten up the boats. Why? Because they're the star of the show. We need to, the eye is going to go to the brightest thing. And it also makes them look cleaner. Now I have to be careful about these whites. When I put the pointer over, I got to make sure, where'd my histogram go? Oh, because we're still in a mask. Oh, we have to wait. I don't want those to clip. So I'm going to bring the whites down a little bit, which allows me to open up the exposure. And I think they're looking pretty good. So now let's hit K again, because now the trees in this area have gotten a little dark. So let's select that and these and these. I'll cut through here. I picked up some of the boat, but that's okay because now we know that the software can find the boats as the subject. Alt to get rid of the stuff in the water and a little there. And now let's also subtract the subject. Well, we lost some of the trees. That's all right. In fact, I'm going to hit brush also on this mask. Subtract with a brush because it picked up some stuff in here. That was supposed to be a subtract. There we go. Okay. All right. So let's lighten up this stuff in the back. Up, we got some sky. Let's subtract that. So let's bring up that background. And it needs saturation. So let's add some saturation. I'm going to bring the shadows up a little more. And I think it needs a little green. How do I know that? I'm just looking at the trees. They're kind of weak. So let's add a little bit of green. And when you add green, you have to add some blue too. And now I'm going to even add some more sat. There we go. Now it's opening up. Okay. Looking a heck of a lot better. I forgot to do our virtual copy on that. Let's command apostrophe on that so I can reset it so you can see, remember what we started with. We are now here. Now let's look at the composition. I know there's a tendency to want to frame stuff in existing frames. Let's try that. Because if you can't easily get a frame for an image, it's going to end up sitting in a pile somewhere. Oh, there's our histogram. So let's just double check the white here. So as I bring the magnifying glass on, 92.9, 92.9, 92.9. Well, that's perfectly neutral. It should be. That's what we sampled off of for our gray balance. I think it's a little bright though. And we'll see that in a second. Let me just do one other thing. Let's do our crop first. I'm seeing this as a legal size, and legal size is a real frame size. And I'm thinking 8.5 by 8.5 by 14 right here. I'm thinking that's a good shape for this. And maybe we don't need quite as much on the right because I want to show the environment, but I also want to make sure that the boats are the stars. All right, so let's look at it full screen because when you get rid of all this other stuff around, it's going to affect your feeling about the image, like what needs to be brighter, darker. So let's look at it at full screen. And needs a vignette. Why? Because these corners here are too bright. We'll bring that's easy. I think the tops of these boats right through here, the same with this one too. I think they're too bright. So I think we need to bring just those pieces down, right above where the windows, the cabins. So let's get out of full screen, get our brush K. I'm going to make it smaller. And I'm going to just pick these spots right here. That's all I want. Let's bring those down. Yeah, I picked up a little bit here. Okay. Let's bring the whites down because that's what really we need to do. Bring the whites down. And I'm going to bring the blacks down too because those windows could stand to be a little darker. I'll hit enter on that twice and then go to effects to get our vignette. And if I make the vignette that dark, it does have a feeling to make the whole image a little darker. And also, as I'm looking at it, this sky is a little too saturated. If we were in the desert Southwest, it might look this intense. This is Massachusetts. It doesn't get skies like this. So we're going to use the color mixer and click in this blue up here and just bring the saturation down. That's better. And also brighten it up a smidge. Now, how could I possibly brighten up the middle of the image without blowing other things out? We're going to do one more mask here. We're going to use Shift M. Nope, I have a question.
Wants to know about the dark blotch in the water near the bottom.
Oh, Bob doesn't like the dark blotch right here. Okay, yeah, must have been oil slick or something. We'll get Bob, for you, I'll fix that. Just give me a sec. Let me first brighten up the middle of the image with Shift M, which is our radial gradient. So I'm going to pick this area like that. Remember, from this inside line to the outside line fades from 100% to 0. So it's not going to go all the way to the edges, but I'm going to subtract the subject out. I don't want the boats to get any brighter. So I click on subtract, select subject, and how cool is that? I mean, this is stuff that would take hours 20 years ago. And I'm going to bring up the overall exposure a little bit in the middle of the boat, in the middle of the shot. And I'm going to make the blacks a little darker to give it a little more contrast. And that looks great. All right, let's see. Bob doesn't like this dark thing. That is weird, isn't it? So how can we easily fix that? I could do it easily in Photoshop, but we're gonna do it here. And I think this might be a good use of AI. So we're going to use the AI remove tool, which is the eraser tool. We're going to use generative AI, and let's select this dark blob and see if just the AI will fix it for us. So let's try that and click on remove. And we're going to see this all together for the first time because I have not tried this on that image. And there's 1, 2, 3 is a little weird. Let's look at 1 again. And 2. I think I like 2. And what I'm also going to do while we're at that, I'm going to hit enter on that and go to hit K again and just like take this part of the image a little bit, and I'm going to bring up the shadows a little more on that and maybe add a little more blue back in. There we go. That looks better. What do you think, Bob? Is that good? All right, I'm going to bring the overall whites down a little bit more too. And let's go to full screen. Whoops. Wrong key. So there's our edit as we let it come in. That's what we started with. And the exposure was perfect, but the white balance was a fail. Why? Because it probably went off the clouds. And the clouds might have been lovely, but there are multiple white balances here. In fact, there are at least 3. You got the clouds, the town itself and the boats, and then the water reflecting up. But we were able to take that to there. And we got rid of the dark blob for Bob. Pretty cool. Although I see the people at Baxter's. It's one of my favorite fish and chip places in Hyannis. Their sign is falling over. Okay, moving on. Oh, and just to tease you, I just wanted to show you this image. I love the mood of this. In fact, I think I put this in last week's newsletter. I wanted to simplify it. And this is really just about the name of my company. It's Land, Sea, and Sky. And it's about the interface of the 3 and the relationship they have. And I wanted to create motion in it, so I made it thinner. So here's the raw file, because here's what I saw that. So that's cool stuff. That image affects me. That image has mood for
You
me.
get a thumbs up on that one.
So it's seeing this stuff when you're there. It's understanding when you look at it. Yep, I got it. The exposure was say, what did I have to expose for? This crash, this wave right here, this crashing surf, because that had to be protected. Everything else was going to be easy to fix, and that's what we ended up with. Question.
Where's the square in the middle? Sure, she was-
What is the square in the middle? The square in the middle where? You talking about the boat image? Was this the one, Patty? Patty. No? Okay. Well, if you want to type in the chat and let us know
It's
what is
the square in the water.
oh,
under
it's
the-
not Pat. It's Patty with the mustache.
Oh,
She bought the subscription.
Oh, okay. Which one are you talking about?
Right in the middle, under the rusted part, the reflection in the water.
You mean here? Do you
Yeah,
mean
down
this?
lower, the blue square.
Right here. Is this thing you're talking about?
Just well to the left of that, under the rusted there, then there, right there.
that makes a square.
Oh,
There,
this.
yeah.
Yeah.
What is that square? It's just
The
how it
water.
was. It is what it is. If
Uh-huh.
something like that is driving you nuts, even though that's what it was, let's just try something. We're going to end up not getting to all the images I prepared, but that's never usually the case. Let's go ahead and select that much, and let's see if AI will put something interesting in there. Um, Diane says a llama. She's so much help. Uh, Actually, that's not bad. That adds a little bit of more reflections. Let's see another one. Again, breaks it up. And I kind of like that one.
It does break up the square.
Yeah. So there you go. Was that really happening? No, but the fact that your eye was drawn to it is important because someone else is going to go there. In fact, even seeing this, it's still there.
Yeah, I didn't see what it would be reflecting to become such a square.
It's just how it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, it really, because the reflection was,
ripples.
if you angle it, it was hitting up in here and then catching a little bit of this. So, yeah, that's good point. And yeah, you know what? I can't let it go now. This is all your fault. I got to go back in here and do it again. I'm going to do more of it and hit a remove again. And that's the whole thing about this AI generative stuff is if you don't like what it does the first time, try it again.
Oh, there you go.
That's maybe a little busy. Let's see the next. Let's see what 2 is. That's mess. That's a mess.
Mm.
I'm not sure I like it.
Could be more the ripples in the water than.
Yeah, I'm going to undo that. Anyway, honestly, I would probably go into Photoshop and some paint some of this over here into this area just lightly, just a little bit to break this up
Mhm.
because I do see what you're saying.
All right.
All right,
Thank you.
let's move on. Appetizers. Wow, it's 8:15. Can you guys stay late? Nobody has to leave at 8:30, I'm hoping. Can you guys stay a little longer? Because I want to do more. Okay. If you have to leave, don't worry, you get the recording. Appetizers. Okay. This is Donegal Castle on the west coast of Ireland. Technically, it's a tower house, but we won't tell anybody. So, oh, okay. You're retired. You can stay. I don't know if you were retired. That means you have to go to bed before 9. I don't know. Okay. Very cool place. It's very misty day here. So let's see what we can do with this thing. What are the problems? Let's bring the highlights way down and see if there is sky. And we see when we bring that down that yes, there is. The color temperature is way off. I don't need to bring the shadows up at all, I don't think. If anything, I'm going to want to add more contrast. Well, let's go there. But this green is weird. I'm going to add some flavoring. Vibrance. All right, that's the vibrance. That's helping the green. And overall saturation. Okay, let's go to the color mixer on this because this green is going to be a problem if we don't fix it. Let's just come in and pick somewhere in this green. Yeah, and you can see when you get the spectrum up here, it is kind of olive, almost like an olive drab color. It needs to be more green. Now, yes, that's way too green, but I think we're in the right direction here. So let's bring down the saturation of it a bit. And luminance, I think brightness wise, I think that's probably okay. But we need to make this castle, the main star in this show. Let's work on the sky, because this is the kind of image when you first take this, you're going to wonder, geez, can I bring this back? Is this worth pursuing? Let's do the sky. So the sky needs a dehaze for starters. Look at that. Look at all the clouds that are there. There's also what looks like a huge spot on my lens right here. When did I take this? Let's see. 24. Okay, this is with Olympus. So I had something going on right here. We'll fix that separately. Let's add some blue to it, to the sky. Not too much. Let's bring the highlights down a bit. Maybe the whites as well. And we'll add some contrast to it. Okay, I think we don't want to touch the sky any more than that. We need to do something with the water though, because the watercolor is off. So we'll hit K for that. And that was pretty easy because I saw enough of a difference between the sky and the water, got up into the sky a little bit. So let's just subtract the sky. All right, so that needs blue, definitely. Let's add some blue into that. Oh, that's much better. And let's add some clarity to bring out the surf and some dehaze. And we got the thing to happen that I wanted to happen. There's kind of a big color halo over here. You can see it around the castle, and that's what we're going to have to go into Photoshop to fix. So let's leave that for now. Let's see if it sees what the subject is, if it can find the castle. And wow, it decided this one post and whatever this thing is. So no, that's pretty worthless. So, whoops, hit the wrong key. Let's do it manually. We'll just hit K, make the brush a little smaller, and let's just drag along. I get the whole thing. Because what's the problem? It's too dark. Now I got around the sides because it was sloppy. Even though the auto mask is on, this thing it's as great as auto mask is, it is not perfect. Rest of the stuff, that's pretty good. So let's bring up the exposure here. There we go. And it's also way too yellow. I've been to this castle a handful of times and it is not. It's a very neutral color. So let's add some blue to it. That's better. And let's add some contrast to it. And let's bring down the blacks and open up the exposure a little more. Now, where is the sun coming from in this shot? I can't really tell. I'm going to since the sky is darker over here, I'm going to make believe the sun's coming from over here. So let's get brush again. And I'm going to just drag along the one side. It still gave me part of the water. Still, it's having trouble with that one. And I'm going to darken that to give us a little bit of dimension on the tower house. I'm going to darken down this bottom too. Okay, what else? Well, this building here, it's just a utility building. I'm sorry, it's got to go. So we're going to AI that one. This is the kind of stuff that the AI is usually very good at, getting rid of this kind of stuff. I have been here where I've taken shots and gotten down lower and got to hide that thing. That did a pretty good job. That one's even better. I think number 2. Number 1. Nope, number 2. Number 2 wins for me. Okay. Is this whole thing straight? Let's click on the crop tool and get the angle tool. And I don't know if it's straight or if this image is actually distorted because of the angle of the lens. Let's find out. All right, now it says it might just be a little bit of an optical illusion. It says that it's perfectly straight. Problem is the castle is slightly, very slightly tilted. And here's the thing, actually in real life it is. All right, what else can we do to make this interesting? Two things. One, this fence line is kind of interesting. So we're going to bring that out a little bit. And then we need to paint with some light and dark to get the viewer to the castle. And then lastly, I'm going to take you into Photoshop and show you how to get rid of this thing, because that's, you can see it's just slightly lighter. It's just how these softwares, Photoshop does it too. When they create these masks, they always put lighter areas around the subject. All right, so let's start with these posts, and I'm going to hope that AutoMask is going to work. And since these are straight, I click once, go down to the bottom of it, click again, and there we go. Make this one smaller. Click, hold down Shift again. Good, same thing here. And then we got a smaller one way down here. Okay, and what I want to do is just bring up the brightness of these, and not only brightness, I want to change the color temperature, because that's going to separate it out. Now they're too yellow. They need to be more neutral. They were more gray. There we go. And let's add some contrast to them. And I'm actually going to make the highlights brighter, just to have them pop out a little bit. And I think even a little brighter. Got to be careful. I don't want to make them unusually bright. Is this going to end up working as a great image? I don't know. Let's do a crop, because there's a lot of stuff in here we don't need this much of. Let's see what happens if we do this. It helps, but how can we make it more interesting? We need to drive the viewer to the castle. So we're going to do that with the brush. And this time we're going to turn off AutoMask. Get a nice big brush. And let's just start picking areas. I'm going to pick the areas that are already darker. And we're going to make them even darker than that. Hope I got a little water there. Clean that up. Let's bring the exposure down here. See if we can. Yeah, that looks better. And then we're going to hit K again and come across the middle. And I'm going to do an S curve up to the castle itself. Not only am I going to make this lighter, I'm going to make it bluer. I still think there's a little too much yellow in there. So let's make it bluer. And we need more contrast, and we need some dehaze in here to finish that off. And I think for me personally, and again, this is the beauty of virtual copies, I think I would actually go here for this image and put a vignette on it. And it's a more moody kind of view of this place. I've been here a bunch of sunny days. It's a very different kind of feeling of the place. But again, we took it. Let's go full screen again. We took it from here, which really this has been a throwaway. But the fence line did make it interesting. And by making it this panoramic, I kind of like the feel, and it does tell a bit of a story of the place. But one more thing that I told you I was going to show you, this halo. So let's send this into Photoshop. Here we go. And I'm going to Command J to make a copy of this. And let's go over to the castle here. And you can see we've got these light areas here. Now, we could just do that lighter, darker thing, but I don't know if it's going to be good enough. So let's go to Select Subject and see what Photoshop decides. And it gave us what we needed. It gave us a border around here. So what we need to do is invert this. So that's Command-Shift-I is invert. And if I back off the zoom, you can see now these things. By the way, if you never heard this, they're usually called the marching ants. You can see it's around the periphery instead of the actual subject. We have everything now but the castle. And what that's going to allow us to do is get the stamp tool. And Let's make that a little bigger. And I don't necessarily want to darken. I want to match the luminosity, which is kind of the same, but not exactly. I'm going to hit Alt and select out in here and then come over to the edge. And keep hitting the Alt so that you can make sure stuff lines up. So I'm going to resample each time I move because the surf is moving. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I Alt click and I'm going to come up along the side there. And it may not look like I did anything, but watch when I turn this layer on and off. And now you can see the brightness change. Notice what it's done. So that's a way to get rid of those kind of color halos that can happen. Oh, I still have, I never denoised this thing. And two, I thought there was a big thing here, but it's gone. So if you forget to dehaze or forget to run the denoise program, let's deselect this whole thing. Let me show you two things. First one, if you don't own the Nik filters, get them. These are all the filters. Define is a great denoiser for after the fact. Now we're seeing it at 300%. So again, go with it. I'm just going to hit OK. It's just a completely automatic. Can you go in and mess with settings? Yeah. But now if we look at it at just 100%, you can see, look at how clean the sky is now at 100%. So that's pretty good. The other one I want to show you, same thing under, whoops. No, I don't want to open something. Under filter, under Nik, Viveza. So Viveza is when you need to add pop to an image and you don't want to go deep into Photoshop to make it happen. Come on. My little spinning beach ball is freaking out. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, it's never good when your spinning beach ball starts freaking out. Okay, here it goes. All right, so I'm going to move this over and I'm going to add structure, a bunch of it. Oh, that's too much. I'm going to add a little saturation. I'm going to brighten the image a little bit. And I think it's a little cool. Maybe it could stand a little warmth. And there's a warmth slider so I can make it cooler or warmer. Maybe just a little bit of warmth. No, actually, no, now that I look at it. And as I look at this tower, I think there's the colors off on that too. So I'm going to get a control point right down here. And I'm going to put it right, come on, come with me. There we go. Click on that. And let's drag the warmth slider. Ooh, I think I like that better.
Nik is DxO.
Nik is DxO. Yes, the Nik filters. You don't need to know that they're DxO. If you just type in Nik filters, Nik, it'll take you right to it. All right. So now if I drag this left and right, you can see there's where this is what we brought into Viveza, and that's what it did. So it really will kind of clean up and add a little bit of pop to your images just with a couple little sliders. And the cool thing about doing it in Photoshop rather than Lightroom, so if you do it in Lightroom, it does it to the whole image. In Photoshop, it's a new layer. So if you decide you like it everywhere except in the sky, you can mask out whatever you want. But I think I'll keep that. So let's go ahead and save that. And we got to move on. Because technically we have like 2 minutes left. And I'm sorry, I got more stuff to show you. Oh, let's see. All right, I'm going to ask you guys again, although you really failed on your first choice. Oh, not really. The boats were good. Let's see. Oh, it jumped back because it wanted to go back to show us what it did for the Nik filter, but we already saw it. I'm going to pick 3 images. You tell me which one you want to edit. The Matterhorn. A fence in Grand Teton. This scene in Monument Valley. The thing I can tell you is all 3 edits are going to be cool. So you pick which one you want. Let's see. I got a Matterhorn. It's 8:28. Somebody has to go to sleep. The fence. Monument Valley. That was okay, fine, equally. Ay. All right. I'll tell you what, I'm going to do the Matterhorn one because it's actually the most complicated of the three. And then I will give you quick speed demos on the other two since you want all of them. Okay, Matterhorn. This is very tough lighting here. And this is in September. We were here in June and you couldn't walk this trail because this was all covered in snow. September is the time you want to go if you want to see it in its reflecting lakes, which is to our left and up a bit. We will be going here in September. We're going to take this hike on this trail and I tell you something, it is awe-inspiring. It's about 2 miles, but it's all downhill to the next train stop. So let's bring up the shadows. We'll bring down the highlights and just do some basic here and then see what it needs. Well, heck, that took us pretty far, didn't it? What are the problems? I'm not sure about this color. There's also a bunch of contrails in the sky. They got to go. And also, there's two other things. One, there's a cable car tower here that's kind of a distraction. And also, the whole thing's rotated a little bit. So let's do that first because it's bugging me. I'm sure it's bugging you. So we'll hit the R key. It's certainly bugging Robert. All right, let's go. Let's get this so we can get the Matterhorn straight up and down again. Is there too much around it? Yes. We'll save that for last. But let's get rid of these contrails. And we're going to use the remove tool, but we're not going to AI this. This is not the stuff you need AI for. And let's zoom in to 50% and make it smaller. You don't need to do the whole thing. But again, start at one end, click, come to the other end of it, click again. And of course, it goes to sample where another contrail is. That's not going to help. So we need to drag it to pick somewhere else. There we go. Same thing for this one. Click once, come to the end. Good, that's gone. There's one kind of here too. We'll get rid of that one. And it came over here to pick, but what it's doing is it's really picking texture underneath, so that's fine. This one, we got a little bit, I'll just drag across it. I'm going to get close, but not all the way, because if I get too close, so I actually hit the mountain, it's going to blur it. All right, that's good. The same thing over here. We'll get rid of that. And it came down to here, and that worked too. So we'll just hit enter. Now, the problem is we zoom into probably 200%. Yeah, we're going to go, in fact, let's just cut to the chase and go 300%. And we have these little pieces here. Now, you could believe that that's not a contrail and just one little flag, one little cloud. The fact that there's here on the other side is giving something away. So let's just get rid of this one. And we're going to use the AI for. And again, yes, it's grainy. We're looking at it at 300%. We will run this through the denoise. All right, so let's just get rid of this one cloud. I think getting rid of this one will be all it needs. And perfect. That's all it needed. And when we zoom back out, having this, now, does this bother anybody? Yeah, it's bothering me. It's got to go, sorry. We'll get rid of that one too. Also, when you're doing this, you got to remember what the thing underneath it looked like, because the AI is going to move stuff. So you got to make sure, like, let's see, 1, 2, 3. 2 is most accurate. 2, it has the same bump that's really on the mountain. All right, so we'll zoom back out of that. Okay, good. Problems. Little too much bottom. This color down here is off to me. The sky is good. But you know what? I think this has to be a Photoshop answer. Also, these shadows, these deep shadows are a little too dark. How can we fix that? Could we fix it in Lightroom? Yeah, you know what? We're going into Photoshop. Let's just do it there. So Command E to bring it into Photoshop. Oh, before I do, let's undo that. Let me just close that one. We go back into Lightroom. I forgot to run the denoise. Yes, Paula, should I use denoise first or last? I don't think it really matters, as long as you do it while it's still a raw file. Because again, remember, when you run denoise, it's not actually doing, it's going to do something. It's going to create a new file. So I'm guessing I'm going to do it last. So and I can run sharpening too. Let's go ahead and look up at the peak here. Let's run sharpening. And again, that's at 300%. Let's see it at 100 in a second. Hold down the Alt key. Going to get rid of the sky. And let's go to 100%. Yeah, that looks good. And now let's hit denoise. And denoise will get rid of any of the sharpening that got applied to like the sky. Okay, fine. Again, we're seeing it at 300% in the denoise thing, but let's look at the sky. See, there's the noise at 300%. And look at that, it's completely gone. And why? Oh, it's saying enhance 3 images because I had the other 2 images selected. So of course it's going to take a couple of minutes, but oi. Questions while I'm doing that. Cable car tower. Okay. Yeah, that's got to go. It is annoying. In fact, I'm going to stop the denoise. So I just hit OK. I'm going to deselect
It's cable car tower.
cable car tower. Let's get rid of the cable car tower for Bob. Yeah, this is going to have to be a AI again. So this is going to be a 2-parter. So let's get around the cable car tower and get rid of that. Click on remove. I think the lines, oh, look at that. It didn't do it. It put another cable. Holy cow. It's freaking out here. Isn't that interesting? It wants a cable there. All right, so we're going to do it again. It really wants a little cable car there. It's fighting with us. Let's hit remove again and see if we can get rid of the damn thing. Photoshop would do it for us. Oh, that's a fail. That's a fail. That's a fail. You know what, Robert? We're going to have to do this in Photoshop. We're going to undo that. In fact, I'm going to back up. Let me go to history. And there we go. I'm putting the cable tower back because we'll get rid of it in Photoshop. So let's run our denoise. Okay. Denoise just for the one image. And we'll hit enhance on that. And then we can bring this into Photoshop. And Photoshop's going to give us a little bit more control. In fact, I'm going to guess that content aware fill is probably going to do a better job of that. Sometimes the generative AI gets a little too clever for its own britches. And by the way, Bob mentioned the cable car tower. There's another tower right here that's got to go. So let's Command E, send this into Photoshop because Photoshop's going to allow us to handle the color better. All right, so Command J. Let's zoom in to this problem area up here. L, just a lasso tool. And I'm going to get rid of this tower. And let's see if just Function Shift F5, which is the keyboard shortcut for content aware fill, let's see if just that'll get rid of it. And it kind of failed. So fine. I got to bring the AI taskbar up and let's hit generative fill and let it generate. And let's see how Photoshop does. Don't make this hard on me. It's generating its variations. But this is the kind of thing that, oh, great. It puts another one. Oh, I can't win. All right, fine. We'll leave that one. Let's get rid of this stuff. Ay, ay, ay. So, all right, I'm just going to leave that. Let's just drag around this stuff. And I'm just going to Function Shift F5 again, which is content aware. There we go. And get rid of these. Same thing. So Function Shift F5 is the keyboard shortcut. Oh, and that was a fail. Fine, I'm going to leave it. We've got a thing going on here. Sometimes the answer is to go to the stamp tool. And I'm going to go to the stamp tool and change it from luminosity back to normal and just paint over this stuff. And there's something weird going on here, something I did. Okay, gone. And while we're at it, there's the other tower. This should be an easy content aware fill. So again, function shift F5, enter, fine, gone. Okay, I mentioned the color was a problem, and also these shadows are too dark. Let's isolate the shadows first. So I'm going to go to select color range and choose shadows. Oh, I've been doing this before. I'm going to kind of compare this to what I see there. Actually, that's pretty good. You can adjust the fuzziness, which will allow it to expand out, and the range. But I think where we were about right there is pretty good. So we'll hit OK. Now it's selected all those shadows. I'm going to do a levels adjustment. And notice it puts the mask in. If I hold down Alt, you can see that's what it's going to act on. And what we're going to do is bring the output levels up just a little bit. So what this is going to do is make the stuff that's pure black slightly less black. So you can see that's what it's doing. I want to come up just so I see some of that inky blackness open up a little bit. I don't want it to turn gray. I just want to be like there's a little bit of light heading in there. I think that will do it. Now, again, as I mentioned, my other problem is the color in here. So let's do a color balance adjustment. And I'm going to zoom in because I don't want to be influenced by other stuff. I want to see what happens right here. So I'm going to go left and right. And what do I think it needs? And it definitely needs some red. So I'll add some red in there. Again, I remember what this looked like. Same thing here. Up a little magenta, yellow, blue. Yeah, it needed some yellow. And then the same thing for highlights and shadows. Sometimes neither of them looks right. When neither of them looks right, that means it's fine. Leave it alone. Magenta needs disk out of space. Are you kidding me? Okay. Really? So by the way, that's what the recording looks like. Fine. Let me just hide that. Fortunately, the Zoom one is still recording because it records to a different place. So I hope. Okay. Where are we? Highlights. Cyan. Red. No, neither of those looks good. So we'll put that one back. And little magenta. Now my Photoshop is freaking out. Okay. And then yellow and blue. No, it needs yellow. And then lastly, shadows. Red, no. Cyan, no. They both look worse. Green, no. Magenta, yes. Blue, yellow. Needed yellow. All right. So now if we back off, we can close this. We can turn this on and off and look at the color change. That's perfect. So I'm going to hit Command 0. The problem is it's affected areas that didn't need the fix. I would say it's, oh boy, kind of a gradient from the top all the way down here. And guess what? I can do that. Just hit the G key. I have under Basics, this one chosen, the black to transparent. And what I'm going to do is just drag this in there. And here's what I just did. I just did that to the mask. And I'm going to take a brush, paint with black at 80, 70%. And I'm going to, whoops, not on the image, on the mask. And I'm going to paint in there and notice it starts taking away that color change that made the foreground look better. Now, here's the other cool thing. If I think the foreground's good but too dark, I have a mask for it now. So what I can do is go to levels or curves. We'll just do it with levels, make it easy. and hold down the Alt key and drag the mask we just used up into here. And double click on here. And if I drag this over, see, I can affect just that. Bring up the bottom a little bit. And as I look at it, I think it's a little too saturated too. So let's bring down the saturation. But again, I only want to bring the saturation. Ooh, maybe not. I was wrong. I like more saturation. Go figure. Okay. In fact, I think the more saturation looks better for the entire image. Or am I wrong? What do you guys think? Is that too saturated? I think it's too saturated. Yeah. So I'm going to drag this mask over again, but I want the foreground to be not affected. So I'm going to invert that, Command I, which flips the mask around. There it is. And now it increases the saturation up top, but doesn't affect the bottom. All right. Anything else I feel the need to do to this? Not in Photoshop. So let's save this and send it back into Lightroom. Any questions while I'm doing it? Okay. All right. Questions for Diane. All right. So as I look at this, let's see. Here's our, let me reset the original. There's our original. Here's where we are now from Photoshop. I think it needs some more contrast. Actually, as I'm looking at this color, I think it is a little too intense. This is something the color mixer is good at. We'll get the brush, just come in here, and I'll just bring down the saturation a little. But there's too much stuff. The Matterhorn is too small in the image. We need to crop this. So let's crop it. I think, I think we need to crop a lot. Because we want this thing to be the star. And do we want it over here? Do we want it over here? Actually, I think something like that. And a vignette. And then I want to open this up a little bit more. So we're going to use our friend Shift M again. And I'm going to rotate this around so that it kind of follows the slope, and then subtract the sky out of this. And then bring that exposure up a bit. And there's a lot of different crops you could do from this. I could decide as I'm here to go back to the crop and say, well, gee, no, I think maybe I want this as a vertical because I want to include that little bit of path down there. Maybe this is the image. It all depends on what it is that you want to share. And as I'm looking at this, I think the color, this is a little too warm. Oop, I lost my auto mask. Okay, auto mask. Again, as you crop, you're going to find different things are going to get emphasized because they get bigger in relationship to previous things. So as I'm seeing that, it's a little too yellow. It needs more blue in it. That looks better. I'm still not completely thrilled with it, and that's what the scene was. That's the problem because this is darker and it has a tendency to draw your eye. But again, we still got to here from there. So certainly, in fact, if we had gone right to here from the get-go rather than there, I wouldn't have had to deal with those damn towers, cable car towers. But again, yes, we will be here in September and take this trail, and I can promise you, if you join us, it is life-changing. It is so stunningly beautiful. All right, 8:43. Let's do these quickly. Virtual copy. And I'm going to do something that I haven't done yet. This is going to be a little different. Shadows, highlights, that's normal. Normal, texture, clarity, dehaze, vibrance, lots of saturation. And I'm going to leave it there because I want this brighter, but I don't want the sky brighter. So let's select the sky. And maybe add a little dehaze to it. Let's bring it out a little more because it was pretty cloudy, dramatic. Maybe a little more contrast. And then I'll bring it up a smidge. Maybe bring the highlights up a bit. All right, now I'm going to duplicate and invert the mask because I want to bring up the entire foreground and add some clarity to that. All right, what's the subject? Well, it's this thing. Can Lightroom figure that out? Let's see. Does it know that's the subject? What the heck was that? All right, it kind of did. I need to add to it. So let's click on add with a brush. So actually, no, it picked up everything but what I wanted. All right, never mind. We're going to have to do this manually. Oh, that was my other mask. Sorry. I'm trying to rush. Okay. New mask, K. Let's get all this stuff. So again, click, shift, drag. Make sure auto mask is on. Yes. Same thing here. Click, shift. So again, whoops, I didn't want to do that one. Click, drag. That's it. So just click, come to the other end, hold down the shift key, and that will get what we want. Now I'm just going to manually drag through here. Because what I'm after is, again, I want to separate this out from the background. How do I do that? Well, it needs to be a different color. It needs to be a different tone. It was blue. It needs to be bluer. And it needs to be brighter. Oh, look at that. Now we can really see the thing. Cool. What else? Shift M. I want to help the viewer along the fence line. So let's go to there, drag this to follow, and subtract the sky. Let's bring up the whole exposure of this area a little bit. And as I do it, I like what it's doing. I think this area here got a little too bright. So let's just subtract it with the brush. And we'll just come in and all it's going to do is take away the brightness we added there. That's looking pretty good. I want to create some more motion in this thing. So I'm going to crop it, but I'm not just going to crop it. I want to add more motion to this. There's too much sky, although I do like it. But let's come down to transform and change the aspect ratio a little bit. Watch what happens as we drag it to the right. Look what happens. We're going to make it a little taller and skinnier. I'm going to make sure I'm not getting anything missing. So I made it taller and thinner. And as we see this, let's add some more contrast. We're still in that mask there. All right, let's hit enter on that. And let's bring down the exposure a little bit, increase the contrast, and put a vignette on this. And do I want to crop a little bit off the top? No, I think I want to crop a little off the right and a little off the top. Because again, I want the fence to be the subject. And again, let's see here's what we started with. And here's where we went. Look at how much more powerful that is. Going from there to there. Changing the aspect ratio a little bit. We made it a little tall and skinnier. Something many of us would like. Look at how cool that is. All right. One more. Patty has to go. Patty, good night. Oh, not Patty has to go. Okay. Yes. All right. Let's deal with this one because this one's cool. If you have to go, I understand. It'll be on the recording. Yeah, hopefully. Okay, basic. Yep, shadows are too dark. Bring down the highlights, open up the exposure, usuals, saturation, and warmth. Okay, actually, that looks pretty good already. But what's the problem? Where do I want here's what you have to decide. Where do I want the viewer to look? I stood where I stood here because I thought all of the shadows being cast on the ground was pretty cool. But with this many of them, they're overpowering everything else. So I'm going to end up cropping them out. I'm going to cut to the chase and do a crop and just have the one row of them. I'm also going to crop off the top. Again, I'm using my golden ratio grid so I can get to there. I've got one little contrail from, oh, there's an airplane there. So let's hit our little Q tool to get a little small brush here. Oh, and it's in AI. All right. We just want the regular brush for this. Okay, it's gone. Now the sky is kind of a weird color because of the saturation that we added. So let's go to Color Mixer and come up into the sky.
Sky looks like it might have been polarized, darker in the middle.
Uh,
Fix that or don't you?
all right. So the question was the sky looks polarized, a little darker in the middle. How would I fix that, or would I? The answer is I'll show you. So yeah, you can see it here. There's kind of a big oval right here where the sky's darker because there was a polarizer. Let me get rid of this thing too. There's another. Oh, there's one here too. God, there are planes all over the place. Okay. So we do have this polarization dark circle here. How do we get rid of it? All right. Shift M. Go right into the middle of it. You got to kind of step back to see where it is and then just start dragging. And I want to have something that both covers it and gives me enough of a transitional interface to go down to 0. I also don't want it to hit the tree. So what I need to tell it is make this mask intersect with the sky, which means it's going to select only things that are both the sky and that. And notice it just got rid of the tree. Now I can bring up the exposure, a little bit of that, to mostly get rid of that polarizing circle. That's the easiest way to do that. Now, that said, with this sky, there's something else I want to do for it, but I'm going to save that for last. I want to help you get to this tree, and which is really why I stopped here. And the problem is, with all of the red-orange dirt here reflecting up, look at how orange and red this thing got. They really aren't that color. So I'm going to get a brush. I'm just going to roughly paint over this up at the top. Why? Because you'll see in a second. Let me even turn off auto mask. I just want to get everything up here. I want to make sure that's all selected. And now I'm going to turn, oh, I do have auto mask back on. I want to get down here and this part of the trunk and down into here a little bit because I want to cool this thing off. Alt to turn it to a minus to get rid of the stuff I don't want to affect. And let me add into there. Turn off auto mask again while I'm up top. I want to make sure I get all of this stuff because I want to affect every branch here. And now I'm just going to subtract the sky from this. And that will get rid of all that stuff. Little mess right here. Let me subtract with a brush just right there. Okay. Same thing color temperature wise. I want to make it a different temperature, which it really was. These things are much more neutral color. They're not that warm. So I'm going to make it green and blue. Needs a lot of blue because I want to take out the red color that's been formed on this from all the reflections up. I'm also going to open up the exposure and the shadows a bit. That is more the color that these things look like when you're standing right next to them. So let's hit Z. Now it's a separate thing. And when we go to full screen, it's going to stick out a lot more. I still think there's a little too much foreground and sky. Something about the sky, though. And yes, there was a polarizer used here. Notice how it's light here, but the polarizer is stopping it from going over here. We need to get that back. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to hit M, which is a linear gradient. I'm going to come up to about there. And we're going to have it intersect with the sky again. So again, we choose intersect with sky. Only things that are both the gradient and the sky get chosen. Again, that's very cool. And we're going to bring up the exposure to lighten the foreground. And if I think it's making this area over here too bright, watch this. We can subtract with a brush, but turn down the flow of the brush, which will make it very gentle. Look at that. All right. So am I done? Really, if I think about my crop, I'm going to probably say here. Oh, and one last thing. I think the shadows in the monuments are a little light. So let's go ahead and, oh, I got to put my flow back. Let's select these. It's all right. I can get, oh, I have auto mask on, off. Again, the beauty of the being able to just say subtract the sky means you can get messy with your selections here. And I'll just subtract the sky. Because what I want are the shadows to be darker, and I'll add some blacks. There we go. And then maybe lastly, one more brush. I'm going to turn off auto mask. This area over here is a little too light because I want to keep you in the image. So let's bring that down. There we go. Just a little bit. And then a vignette, and we'll be done. So a little bit of a vignette. And again, maybe it didn't look, remember, that's what we started with. That was our raw file. And look what we ended up with as it draws in. Look at that. That is cool. And that tree really creates a different focal point because it is so different than everything else that you see in Monument Valley. And you can see everything is so well defined. Look at the clarity of all the bush there. Let me zoom in even more. Again, that's one of the beauties of the Micro Four Thirds cameras. This is shot with the OM1 Mark II because they give you more depth of field at the same f-stop as a bigger camera because the sensors are smaller. All right, we are way over, so I will call it. Thank you all for joining me, and see you again soon. Have a good weekend.